welcome you guys to the Lynx Full Team Coaches and Press Conference. We are going to do one at a time, beginning with the esteemed Cheryl Reeve. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Well, we're a couple days into training camp. We're obviously there's a great deal of excitement about the start to the season and some of the returners getting back together. And I said this a couple times over the last 2 days. Our starting place is much further along than what it was last year. We know what we have in the core group. They know who they are, right? And so that starting place is much further along, which has been helpful. And then, the rest of the camp has been really competitive, and obviously players that are trying to position themselves to either compete for a job or help themselves with regard to maybe overseas opportunities.
Jim?
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Just wanted to start with today's news on a lot of broadcast information that came out, including the television or televising of preseason games, which hasn't always been a format thing for fans of the league, as well as radio news with the great Sloan Martin added to the play-by-play call. So just how exciting is it to see that kind of in-depth broadcasting being added to the team schedule in addition to the 44-game season?
Yeah, I think last year. This time when the preseason games started and the level of enthusiasm and from our fans wanting to watch preseason basketball, the notorious 2 million viewed, the live Twitter, whatever. So yeah, I think the league saw there was an appetite for that. And so it's a nice evolution for the league. And, we know that our fans, that for a long time have wanted this. And so I'm glad that we're able to give it to them. Super excited about the addition of Sloan. Welcome to Sloan in that role. And again, it's all growth opportunities for us. And the league is in a great place, and our franchise is in a great place.
You've been talking about how you'd kind of like to develop a personality for your second unit, because that might, in particular, fit Diamond's strengths.
Yep.
Can you talk about that process and what we might see that might differ from the starting group?
Yeah, hard to say right now, as we don't have everyone here. So we've got some second team players that are playing on the first team. And so I would say it's too early in camp, to sort of say what that's going to look like, as we've been sort of just building a foundation right now. And we haven't taken that next layer dive. Week 2, we should be able to get to more of that. But sort of the mindset is, as we know, Diamond Miller plays in transition really well. She's unique to our team in that way. We want to make sure that we're getting those opportunities. We have some targeted ways for each of the players that, especially someone like Diamond, that we can target her field goal attempts. What does it look like? Diamond defensively, the next step for her. We're excited to see how she can apply those things. She was our most improved on-ball defender last year. And so just another evolution of now being a third year pro. I think T gives us a sharp contrast to Courtney, as we know, Heidemann does. And so I think kind of her ability to get downhill was really important to our team last year. But we also don't want that to be T's identity. T's shooting more threes is a target for us. And so getting her in that space. Offensive rebounding, is it going to be a second group? Because Jess Shepard's going to do that for us. She does that well. Jess Shepard's going to defensive rebound and bring it up in transition. Maybe really different than what we have in the first group in terms of the pace of play. So those are things that we're excited to get to, and I'll probably have more to say, when we get to week 3 to see how it's going after we get a couple games under our belt. I've never been, like line substitution, like hockey. I've never been, big on that. Sometimes it happens that way when you have a long time in between. Maybe they made a couple subs, but now there's no stoppage of play. And then the next thing there's piled up, there's 4 of them. But that's not the plan. No.
Cheryl, the last time we saw you at the podium here, you had said that you were going to take a break over the summer, and I think you said disappear. Were you able to do that over the summer, and how did that change your preparation coming back into the season? Was it a welcome change, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, the off season for us was the fall and winter. I had every intention of, saying no to some things, and next thing well, you couldn't say no to this, couldn't say no to that. So I did a couple things, and then I went off the grid. Sort of dove into coaching Oliver, in basketball, and just honestly said no even to traveling for family reasons, et cetera, and just did a lot less. But the off season, that window was really short this year, right? Which is a great thing. Playing until mid-October, next thing you know, college season is right around the corner. And so we had a lot of change in our staff that sort of limited my ability to really, kind of kick back. And, next thing you know, we had to, hire and train and, figure things out. So I was right back to it pretty quick. But I also felt I did a better job of feeling like I could delegate, and we'd still be okay. I'm a Virgo, so there's some things that kind of get in the way there, but, trying to have that comfort level of saying that's a must in order for me to be at my best for my family and for when I come back here. So thought it was good. I would say that I didn't do anything, really that special. I'm a DIY person. The kitchen I was working on was well almost done. So I only had a couple of things, punch list items I was doing. So no major projects, but that's where I find peace.
Wish I had that kind of skill. Wanted to ask, this is the second year of Second Spectrum in the WNBA. You hire a basketball analyst. Of course, you've long had Swanee, Maddie's here. This has always been a robust operation with analytics, but how do you continue to cultivate and progress that part of the entire franchise and how that may look this year? Yeah.
We're always in search of ways, poor Maddie, I'm always constantly saying, I wonder what, the data says about this, but I think we're trying to find ways to, just like when we years ago, in 2017, between 2017 and 2018, we invested in the NOAA shooting aid because we needed to shoot more threes. Brunson needed to evolve. We're always trying to find a way that we can be better than what we were than the season before. Analytics is a way to do that. And so, yes, we're fully invested, and robust is a good word. We use it in every facet of what we're doing. Including, how we coach the game, what possessions we value, what shots we're taking, just like most of the teams, how you're managing your coach's challenges, things like that. So it literally is in every phase of what we're doing, whether it's the off season or the on season.
Cheryl, getting back to your staff for a second, unless I missed it, you didn't hire someone with a general manager title.
Correct.
How did you split up all the different duties that Claire did, and did you anticipate hiring somebody as a GM at some point down the line?
Yeah, so there were 3 areas of the general manager position that we kind of looked at all the ways that Claire was participating in the operation, and we kind of put it in 3 buckets. And the initial mindset was that we would maybe pursue a general manager. What I found was that we had some talented people internally that when I started having conversations with people that I felt like elevating them, that was sort of the right thing to do. So it was kind of under our nose, so to speak. And so we split it up in 3 areas. Michelle Blexrud, who has been with us for a number of years, has been Claire's understudy for years. And so the more of the operational, player-centric, team marketing agreements, interaction with the business staff as it pertains to players, that would fall to Mish. Maddie Schiller, who's our if I look at Claire when she was young and when she was hired and the ways that she was confident in her first few years and we grew confident in her, Maddie Schiller is on that same path. Very, very bright young person that is not just a data scientist. What I learned was her ability, she's not just behind the numbers. She can understand how you have to apply them. She played basketball, so she understands if I take exception to maybe something that data says or poke a hole in it. She was really good in that space. And our discussion with her was, do you have aspirations to be in the front office? If so, there's this opportunity. She would handle, so she's player personnel manager. And so she handles all the contract phases and communication with the league. More of the grunt work so that she can dive into that space and learn the operation of that and managing the salary cap. Paul Swanson, who has been with us for years, I've kind of felt like I wanted, especially as we move into a new CBA, that I wanted to have someone who was responsible for collective bargaining agreement deep dives. I don't always want to have to go find what page something is on and read it. I want to be able to go, Swanee, what's the rule on blah, blah, blah. And so that's how we divvied up those responsibilities. So I had it right under our nose. I don't know. I think it all evolves, the answer is not no. The answer is not yes. I like what we have right now. It's working for this staff. We hired a lot of new people. That was also a part of that decision, that I didn't necessarily think that adding one more new one was in the best interest for me in particular. Yeah.
Cheryl, you did take a little bit of time in Miami. Just wanted to talk about Unrivaled.
Yeah.
And kind of how that gets you kind of prepared for the training camp, with them playing and getting them already in sync going into a season, just the benefits of playing.
Yeah, I thought Unrivaled was terrific. I don't know if the players really understood what they were getting themselves into in the full court 3-on-3. Yes, it was a shorter court, et cetera. But the pace at which things happen, all of us coaches were, certainly thrilled that opportunity was there for them. There was a little bit of time in between Unrivaled and the start of the season. 3-on-3 is different. They didn't rotate a lot defensively in 3-on-3, right? They kind of had their way. They were playing things, and so now they got to shift to this mindset. Oh, I have to go help the helper. I got to go. And there's less spacing for sure. But I think that that was really good for them. It was incredible, I think, to see the ways in which both business-wise and basketball that they impacted a W, I think is something we're going to look back on, and it was a pretty meaningful time. I don't know where it's headed in the future, but I think business-wise especially, they've shown what happens when you are focused solely on a product and not being an afterthought to a larger product, right? I think that was on full display.
We'll take one last question on Zoom from Andrew Lipton.
Good, Andrew. Are you talking about end of regulation? No, I don't think there's, we said that when we looked at it. Is there anything we would, do differently? I think the players that were on the court, their chemistry and synergy and their movements, we didn't question a thing, any reaction that they had. I question the foul call. I think that remains the same for us.
One final thing, you had three players on your team in Fee, Alana, and BC who basically had career years last year. They're all, like you said, a member of the same draft class or same age, about 28 years old. In your mind, in general, what is the sweet spot for the prime of somebody's career? I mean, is there reason to believe that all three can take another step, or are we at the point where we want to keep them where they were at?
No, I think there's another step in them. So I think they're entering their prime, and so they're that next level. I think Fee, I always use Asia Wilson as a comp because I think that's the same, that they each add something every year. When Asia Wilson comes back this year, she's going to be even better than last year, which is scary. Same for Fee, right? I think Bridget, she will be the first to tell you there's, she would probably say more than just a couple things that she wants to get better at. I think the biggest thing is the maturity that they're about to enter their prime. They're 29 to 33, 34. Those 4 or 5 years, I think that's what we're headed for. So I think that's, there's going to be continued growth, but then it becomes more about managing their bodies, health, that sort of thing. But they're close. They're close to that, but not quite.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. All right. See you guys.